Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today, the day of reckoning has come. It's time to move on to Beatdown Battle Catalyst, so we can take on Inferno 1, which is a disturbingly amount of difficulty harder than the EX2 version in the other tab. So EX2 is where you get the final dupe of Gazel, and Inferno 1 is where you get one of the bingo missions for the Chancellor Union board. So if we go here, it's this one right here, clear blah 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 Inferno 1 difficulty, you get the 20 Dragon Spheres, and it will get you closer to getting that 5-star ticket. So first off, if you are not in a union, this does not apply to you. If you don't have access to Chancellor Unions yet, then this bingo board, you don't even have it, so it's not even any big loss. 2, if you do not have the meta or the extremely cheesy stun team, you are not going to clear Inferno 1. Just straight up, it is too difficult, the HP cap is too high, the gimmicks on the stage are unworkable unless you have the meta. And I'm talking Elmisia, Diablo, and Raphael, because they are pretty much necessary to do 18 million damage. 18 and a half, actually. 18.5 million damage. Alright? Teams have only just now gotten to a point where they can do 18.5 million damage reliably, and that's when they're with their own specific teams and their own specific beatdowns with their protectors that are giving them extra damage buff. You cannot do 18.5 million type neutral. It's straight up. Not here. Not when your ults are 100% resisted for 5 turns, your physical resistance is 5 turns, you body and spirit ceilings, balloon orbs are nerfed for 10 turns. She has resistance to all the primary big time buffs that unless you have Elmisia, you're not going to be able to seal. And she, after turn 9, she starts to hit really hard and a lot. And you can't even put invincibility on you because she nullifies that. This stage has so much going on that is meant to cuck literally everyone but the primary meta team and 1 or 2 differing supports. So unfortunately, today's video is going to be the primary meta with 1 or 2 differing supports. Mostly. There is one team, and we will talk about that now. Alright, so this JP player, I don't know their name, they beat it using this team. I think it's actually Inferno 3 that they beat it, because that's 345 EP requirements. So yeah, if it can do Dire 2, then it can do Inferno 1. But Overlord Rimuru, Lumi, Yom, Soka, Light Shizu, and Guy. So this team relies on waiting out the ceiling on the stun and the vengeance at turn, 11 I think is when it runs out, and then constantly using Lumi to deny Milim's ult, and then Shizu to keep you healed, and Soka to continue to get you green orbs. I'm not going to cover this team, because obviously it's already done. So if you want to watch this team and how it runs, I'll put a link to this video in the description below, so you can watch it on your own time. So there are some stun cheese teams that you can do that will eventually kill. If you want to stun and then, constantly DPS with someone, that might be an option. If you want to stun and vengeance, this is the way to do it. But if you don't have Overlord Rimuru to do that, you're going to struggle a lot with points. And if you don't have, the essence, pretty much everyone on this team, because I'm fairly certain that Shizu also needs to be skill fused, it's going to be a tough sell. So if you don't have this, and you don't have the other kind of options I'm about to show you after, then yeah, I'm sorry guys, you can't do it. The ceiling is way too high for most players. Okay, so in order to keep this video relatively short-ish, I'm not, this is the meta team as I'm running it right now. Elmisia, Gazel, Diablo, the old masked hero, because as of recording this video, we don't have the new one. Raphael, and then Overlord Shizu. I don't think I need to sit here and show you how it runs, because this is a fairly whaley team, and I don't think a lot of people have this Shizu at this point, so we'll just show off the damage that it can do, which is going to be right here, and it does 131 million damage. Excellent. I think that's 35 stacks of Raphael, because we use the rewind. Obviously, this can get the job done. It's just a lot of juggling skills and the single orb changes and everything like that. So, obviously, this meta team can get it done at full damage, full power. So, let's move on to the other teams that don't have units that maybe you don't have access to because Overlord Jaune is a collab character. Alright, so now begins the clips of teams that have the meta but need some substitutions. Idol Shuna is not a collab character. She is a green ult swapping unit, so she can be useful. Her buff skill is grossly outclassed by Diablo, but well, we need an ult swapper. And then instead of bringing more damage, we brought Vengeance Jaune, because he is a free-to-play character, and he has a blue orb change, and he's on Divine General, which means that Gazel's orb change will actually affect him. He will get the skill points, he will get his orbs changed, and that I think is the most important part. So we're going to go at double speed here because it's a long fight. Turn 1 orb change plus the 0 cost green buff is great, and then we can just bring Raphael and Shuna in. Raphael will use his first stack, and pretty much at this point, I mean, if you're playing Inferno, you probably know how this team runs, and you have this team available, so you don't need to sit here and listen to me commentate the nitty-gritty. But the first couple turns can be a bit tricky. Generally, you're looking for 3 green orbs of some color. Since Gazel can change any color, it doesn't matter. Here we get kind of lucky, so we can use Jaune, we can reset him, use another stack, use another green buff, bring Gazel in, use his orb change at low cost. And then at this point, you're pretty much set. So we're going to use a few different stacks, more skill points, more synergy power, and ult damage. It works. Obviously, there are not a lot of green ult swapping characters, and that I think is a huge problem in this game, the fact that we don't have them. I think it's a huge problem that Gazel didn't have it, because a lot of the other free-to-play characters throughout 2024 have had double or single ult swaps, and I really think this team needed it, especially considering that his 90-point debuff is not as impactful as like 2 or 3 more stacks of Raphael. Like, I'd rather use the 90 points to use Raphael a couple of times, because that would just get more damage out of everybody, because everybody's getting that synergy buff, and everyone who has an ult is using it. So, Gazel's 70% element resistance down and 30% weakness down, like, it certainly helps your damage, yeah, but it's not super duper impactful, so it's not really what I'm looking for. So now it's turn 4, we've got ults. We can technically use Shuna twice if you use Diablo's multi-skill, and that can actually make things a whole lot easier. So right here, we used it the first time, now we used it again, and now we can orb change, we can take Shuna out, we can double orb change, and even though Raphael's not up front, he's going to get the attack stacks, and we've already used the stacks that we could for his skill at that time. So maybe we missed a few, but overall, this team, if you're running it correctly like this, you're not going to really struggle for damage. The synergy power buff affects everyone, the space attack buff affects him and Diablo, or the space and dark attack buff affects him and Diablo. No one else on this team is getting that. And as long as you can get skill points up to a reasonable amount on turn 8 when you're nuking, then you're gonna have enough power. As long as your gear is set. But people who are playing Inferno should have relatively good gear at this point, because otherwise you probably wouldn't have cleared EX2 to begin with. But that's just me. So, here we have a conundrum, right? Because we can only orb change the one Raphael orb. So we're just gonna remove Shuna. She's not gonna partake in this. So we're gonna orb change, we're gonna debuff, we're gonna whatever, and we're just gonna nuke now, because we have the power to do so. And I kind of want to do it, just to see what we get out of this damage team on turn 6, when the ult resistance is gone. And it's not as good as I thought. Raphael does 9 million, which is great, but it can't kill. What it did do is it deleted all of the ults from our hands, and so now we just need to build back up, which is not that hard to do if we have constant green buffs and we're getting 25% ult gauge. if you didn't want to nuke there, like me, because I just kind of wanted to do that for science, if you were going to run it properly, you would have just alt swapped away and you would have tried to make that turn work. And you would have just properly nuked on turn 8. But here, again, science. We're here to test some things out. I know it's going really fast and you can't see the damage numbers. As long as it's not killing, it's not important, right? Even if we do enough damage to get her low, as you saw with that last nuke, she will just heal. So you're not really in danger of accidentally killing. You're either going to kill her or you're not, because you're either doing 10 million or 18 million damage, or you're not. And even Raphael's 10 million didn't kill, because she has 18.5 million. So, yeah, things are a bit wonky here. But we'll use the alt swap twice. Here we go, we're on turn 8. We're actually going to lose that extra weakness strike buff that we get from being the unbound within turn 6 to 8. So we're now going on turn 9. We have EX ults for both Diablo and Raphael, and now we're going to nuke. So I will slow it down here. Okay. So we are going to use the Gazzle debuff, because why not? We're already here. We might as well use it. And then we'll start just stacking. We'll orb change a lot so we can get a nice full hand of greens. Wouldn't really be that necessary to do, but I do want to see what a 200% orb for Raphael does. And then we can get one more use out of the Raphael stack. Do I actually click and see how much I've got? Or do we just send it? Okay, we just send it. We've got somewhere. We've got stacks. That's the important part. So let's send these orbs 200% before the Diablo ult, so 1.25 million on that. If we had sent the Diablo ult first, it would have done more, because we would have gotten the 50% weakness strike. But there we go. 18.6 million with this team on turn 9 without the extra unbound damage. So definitely running Idol Shuna as an alt swapper makes your life a bit easier. But if you don't have Idol Shuna, problems can arise. There is one more character, though. Alright, change it up. We have one other character who has a green alt swap, and that is the Light Masked Hero. Came out for the pre-1.5 anniversary last year. She's the only other character that has a green alt swap, besides Overlord Shizu and Idol Shuna. So if you don't have those two, and you have the Light Masked Hero, she can work. Instead of bringing Yom, because maybe you don't have access to the Vengeance Yom because you weren't playing during the Vengeance meta or their rerun, then free-to-play Isis you can get in the flashback shop, and she has the blue to green orb convert that you need for turn 1. Unfortunately, she's not Divine General, so her orbs will not get you those skill points. Neither is this Masked Hero. None of the Masked Heroes so far are on Divine General, but they're going to make the new one on it for some reason. I really wish they would standardize how they put units on teams, but that's a nitpick for a different day. Probably for a video talking about probably my most not liked things in the game. So orb change turn 1 with Isis. We've moved everyone around to give them extra gauge and use protection traits a little bit better, so that's why Diablo is in the back now. And then the free green buff that we get from Diablo is the exact same percentage-wise as what Isis is doing, but Isis costs 15 points and Diablo is free, so who do you think we should actually use? Isis might last for 3 turns, and maybe there is some relevance to that. However, you kind of need to use Diablo's buff, because that enables you to use multiple skills in a turn, like Gazzle's Orb Change and stacks of Raphael. So there's never going to be a turn where you don't use Diablo's buff, unless you don't plan on doing any stacking. So Isis is just here literally for turn 1. You don't even have to bring her if you don't want. Like, if you want to bring another DPS character instead of Isis, like, go ahead, be my guest. You could bring Visions of Coleus Violet or something for more magic damage, or some other kind of DPS character that's going to give you ult. Commander Hinata, like this Raphael is on Commander, I think. So you can get 120% extra ult damage on top of whatever you're getting with Raphael stacks. So that could be something. Weakness Strike. A few characters do that. You could bring like Earth Jaune for the 300% skill point increase or 300 skill point increase and the full reset. So you could reset maybe 3 times on the nuke turn and have 300 skill points to use. Like, that could be something that you might want to take a look at if you have access to it. Or you just bring like a secondary DPS. Like if you're not confident that your Raphael is going to kill, then you could just bring Space Millim or something. But because we only have access to one alt swap, I'm going to send alts early. Like I don't really want to get alts right now, so I don't want them. Just get them away from me. Because if we attempt to use the hero 3 times every turn, from turn 4 to turn 8, like that's a lot of points, and it's taking away from stacks of Raphael and orb changes from Gazel. So I don't really want to have to do that until we're mostly done with the fight. So turn 5, like now is when we can start holding on to them and stacking and getting the EX alts for Roth. But like turn 1 through 4, like if you get an alt randomly, I would just let it go. I would send it. Get it out of your hand. Make room. You're not hurting for alts on this team. Not with the Enamor effect from Omizia, not with the green buffs, so you're gonna be just fine. Except here, where things are kind of weird because you don't have access to Diablo immediately. So we're gonna send Gazel's ult because he's gonna get another one anyways. But we have an EX ult for Raphael now, which is the most important thing. So these are the 3 options. Like Overlord Shizu, if you play during Overlord Collab, then you're very lucky and you have her, then great. And if you did play and you didn't get her, then I'm terribly sorry. Idol Shuna has been around since Christmas of last year. She's been featured in a number of banners, so maybe you have her. Maybe you got her on some free tickets somewhere down the line. If you have her, that's great. If you don't have her, then your last option is the Light Masked Hero, at least for green alt-swapping characters. And if you don't have her, then there are ways around it, which we will show after this video, after this clip. There are ways. It just becomes even more difficult to kind of use efficiently. So, or you could do what some people have done and just not use any alt swappers and just maybe hold Raphael on the back and send everything and just bring a whole bunch of damage. Like that's also an option. If you don't have an alt swap, then it doesn't really matter. Just build up enough points and Raphael can still nuke. You don't need an alt swapper. You can send Diablo alts, and it technically will help Raphael do more damage because of the weakness strike buff. So, I mean, that's an option. Oh, let's slow this down really fast. Okay. So we're ready to nuke, right? We can even use the hero's debuff, which increases our orb damage by 50%. And when we're fully buffed up on turn 8, our orbs do a lot of damage already. So giving them even more power is just kind of fun in games. And we have a full hand of oranges, so we might as well send them. So let's use just as many stacks as we can with Raphael with 215 points left over. And yeah, we'll nuke. This will be kind of fun. So the hero, Idol Shuna, Overlord Shizu, plus one of the new characters that are coming out for the Divine General team, whether it be the hero or the mystery 5th unit, we don't know. I really hope one of them has an alt swap. That way we have a green alt swapper that's not a collab character that can be used in the future. So let's send Diablo first. It's enhanced the damage of everyone. He does 1.8, not great, but whatever. Raphael's orb does 1 million right there, and then this is going to do 2 million. Yeah, 2.1 million on a 200% orb. Gazel ult 1.8, and Raphael does 18.6 million damage. Roughly around the same of what we did the last time, too, so all we did was change our orb changer from Isis to Yom, and change our alt swapper from the hero to Shuna, and then you're running almost the same exact team. Alright, so maybe you don't have one of the limited green alt swappers. Well, you can use a blue. It's kind of difficult, but you certainly can, and there are a lot more free-to-play blue alt swappers, and just blue alt swappers in general, than there are greens. So for this run, because she's good and she is actually going to help a lot, we're going to bring Visions of Coleus Blanc, a unit that I mean, a lot of people probably will have, maybe if they've played since last year, that pulled her. She's good. She's got Weakness Strike for everyone, which will help Raphael, and Synergy Resistance down, which this team is certainly doing a lot of synergy power. And she has a triple alt swap to blues, technically, but we've brought Isis again. You could bring Yom, and we have the ability to change some of those blues back to greens. So this certainly works. And if you don't have Blanc, you can use free-to-play Rieger, or free-to-play Tempest Leak Gobta, or free-to-play Glenda, or something like that. Like, there are a lot of blue orb or Ult Swappers in this game, because blue stacking teams are a lot more prevalent than green stacking, which is part of the reason why we don't have a lot of options. But Blanc being a good support and magic and having an Ult Swap, regardless of color, does work, and since Isis is changing too, and Gazel can change anything, well, that's Divine General, we do have to do a lot of playing around to make sure it actually works out, but you can get around it. It just requires a little bit more thinking and a little bit more patience before you start Ult Swapping, orb changing away, and flipping characters out. So this does work, and again, you can use any of the other free-to-play characters. They won't give as much support, or any, as far as their other skill is concerned, because most of them are orb changers to blues. But the option does exist, and I think we've proven that Raphael and Diablo by themselves can probably get the job done on Inferno without any additional extra buffs. Like, we can do decent amounts of damage without other of the supports, because we didn't use the Shuna buff, right? We just brought her for the Ult Swap. The hero, I mean, didn't really affect us, because those were normal orb buffs. So Diablo, Raphael, Mizia, Gazel can definitely get the job done. It's just, if you want to deal with ults, then you're going to have a problem. But because I didn't want to send everything, and we're only on turn friggin' 3, we sent these ults, and we'll build it back up as time goes on. And, I mean, yeah, that works right there. We don't have to do anything. So, reset, and then double orb change here. That's a lot of points that we're going to get back, and we're going to get some ult here. So, now that it's turn 4, we should start building up the EX ults. So, let's start stacking. The synergy resistance down is going to be a really, really hefty debuff on Milim, because we're going to have so much synergy power, like at least 200% synergy power at bare minimum, because we're going to use Raphael stacks a lot. Diablo's already giving us 100%, so she's got a hefty skill that is only 80 points, but it's going to help us hit like really, really hard. So here, orb change, and then we'll bring Blanc in for Gazel. Yeah, Gazel. Nope. Brought him in for Isis. Okay, well, sure, that's fine. Because we could ult swap, they're going to be their orbs anyways. So, there we go. We successfully ult swapped ults to blues and then converted them anyways. And, I mean, we could have done something else along the way, in some way, shape, or form different than that, but, I mean, that works. They're guaranteed to be Divine General orbs because they're Divine General ults, so there's nothing wrong with that. It just becomes a problem when we have a Blanc ult, like here. So, ult swap. Boom. Alright, those are blues. Okay, fine. And then here becomes the interesting scenario of what do we do with that blue orb? So we can bring Diablo in, or we could bring Isis in. We could take the Blanc ult, and we could convert this hand, or we just send it. So, multi-skill, and then orb change, stack, and it seems like we're going to orb change just 3 times? No? Okay, we're going to get him out of here. Alright, so orb change the blues to ensure that we can take the other blue orbs, and then we'll orb change the rest of them, because now they're all Divine General, and we're going to get a lot of points. Boom, and then more stacks of Raphael. So there's the example of this working fairly well. As long as you bring like another orb changer. I don't think this would work if you didn't bring like Isis or free-to-play Yom or something. Like then there would be way too many blue orbs, and it'd be way too expensive to try and single orb change all of them. So I don't think that's a good idea. If you're gonna run this style of team with a blue Ult Swapper, you need to bring another blue orb changer. A dedicated blue orb changer. But that's the only real caveat. Otherwise, it still works. Like here, okay, let's do it again. We could send, we can bring Diablo in because Blanc didn't have an orb. So, excellent. Or we did something where she didn't have an orb. And now we'll continue to orb change. It's turn 7. We're almost ready to nuke. So one more stack of Raphael here. And yeah, it works. It works really well. And we're going to do a lot of extra damage here compared to the other teams because of the power of Blanc's buff being both weakness strike 100% and the synergy down. So let me slow this down for the nuke. Okay. So buff, buff, buff. Did we use the Gazel debuff here? I can't remember. No, we didn't. Okay. So we're just going to do more and more stacks of Raphael. That's going to be more impactful for our damage. So boom, boom, and then we have 195 points to burn through like, what, 4 or 5 synergy uses. So, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. 3, nope, just 3. Okay. 3 stacks plus the free one, so 4 technically. And that's it. So let's send Diablo first. Let's get the extra weakness strike. It's not an EX ult, so it's only 25%. We've gotten a little bit extra throughout this run because we did send his ult earlier as well. So 3.4 million right there. Raphael Orb does 1.15. The Blanc ult doesn't matter, 1.2. And then Raphael does 42 million damage compared to the other runs where we did 18 million. So that worked out real super duper well. So don't be afraid to bring a unit that is going to ult swap away, because as long as you have countermeasures against it, Isis or Yom, then you can get around it. And that actually might do more damage than what you were previously doing beforehand using someone else. So there are like the 3 things. Again, you can bring other blue ult swappers if you have them, just you're not going to do 48 million damage. It does work. Now I think I'll show off some of the teams that I tried that didn't work, just to show you guys that it didn't work. Before we move on to the failed teams, this is an example of the team where you don't bring an ult swapper. So Elmizia, Gazel, Diablo, Raphael, Violet, and Milim. So Space Milim being a single target space magic character, we can't use her Drago because that's sealed. The space buff that she gives is inferior to Raphael, but she will get the space buff from Raphael, the magic buff, the synergy power buff, and the attack stacks. So, I mean, this works. It's just you have to deal with not having an ult swapper. And all you do is you just send ults. And then eventually you just save up an EX ult for Raphael and then send him to the back. But as we can see on this nuke turn, we have an EX ult with Raphael, a normal ult with Violet. Milim's got an ult in the back, so we can do a couple more things. Milim is also going to participate in the stacking ult and synergy power from Raphael. So here, we have 3 fairly strong single-target space ults that are all magic. So this does work. You can do this. And I'm pretty sure you could even get away with not having... well, maybe not having Violet, or maybe just bringing Violet and dropping Milim for another orb changer or something, or a different type of support buff, and you would have enough damage. Because Raphael, with this team setup, has already proven that he can do it by himself, but we're just going to do this anyways. So she's doing 1 million a hit. Raphael's 200% orbs doing 664 right there. Okay, maybe not 1 million, but 6.2 million for Violet. Milim 5.5, and then Raphael does 3 million, right? 30 million. 30 million right there. So yeah, we've got plenty of power. You don't need an ult swapper. You can just put a whole bunch of DPSs as long as the rest of the team does make sense. As long as you can get those stacks, this can certainly work out for you. Alright, so I tried bringing Primal Demon Blanc. She's got her own stacking and pierce power, ult damage, and attack buffs. We put her on the Elmizia team, so we just took out Raphael. Whether that was a good idea or not, obviously not. And then we've brought, as our 5th unit, Primal Demon Diablo, who's going to give her the 100% physical and the guaranteed pierce, so we can activate her stacking pierce power. And I won't put you in suspense. We don't do a lot of damage, so let's go ahead and jump ahead. Oh yeah, there we go. So Blanc's ult 67k, 408k synergy and pierce, and then her ult does 3.89 million. Yeah, nowhere close. Then I tried to not bring Diablo, so I wouldn't have access to the multi-use things per turn. And Gazel, Elmizia, Idol Shuna, Isis, Raphael, Violet, and it doesn't go so well either. So the EX ult with Raphael, with the synergy power, the magic buff, his own buff, yeah, we've only gotten, what, like 8 stacks of it now? So 80% is still hefty, but that's 80% on top of the 40% that we're getting from Shuna, not the 100%. And we don't do enough damage either. Gazel 755, and then 7.4 million. I mean, that's better than what we did with Blanc, but it's not even half of her full HP. So doesn't work there either. We need the extra stacks. Alright, I tried doing an Overlord Rimuru green team. We brought Sokka for the future hands, Shizu for the ult swap, Isis for the orb change, and then Violet and Jaune being strong space single target dealers with their own buffs. I had a glimmer of hope that it might work, but it doesn't work. So let's go ahead and just send this. Let's use all the buffs. We have an EX ult for Jaune, not for Violet, but this was more a science run, so if Jaune can't do it, then Violet's EX ult certainly isn't going to help. And Isis doesn't matter, she's synergied anyways. And then Violet, 911, not even a million. Jaune does 2 million, and yeah, so that didn't work either. It was a good thought, but not nearly enough damage. Then I tried using the entire Visions of Kolia's team, plus Exalted Champion Rimuru for the attack buff, and the turn of rainbow ult swapping so we can get a lot more rainbows. This also does not work, even though Lumi does give us the extra damage against space enemies, because this is essentially just the 3rd anniversary team with blue. It still doesn't work, because we can't stack efficiently, we don't have enough power to do 18 million damage. And that's just the sad fact of it. So I think I might have to cut ahead for this clip. Yeah, hold on. Okay. So here, this again is a testing kind of thing. Depending on what Jaune does as far as damage is concerned, it will determine if I really want to put extra time into this. But based on the damage that we do, and it is quite difficult to actually get EX ults for all 3 of the girls, with blues being so nerfed that they don't give us anything. We're only really banking on the rainbow orbs. And here, Violet, 1.9, fine. Jaune, 5.7, that's good. It's not enough. And she's the only one that's going to do 5.7 million, because she has the personal synergy buff. And we have to wait for the turns where the synergy resistance is gone. So even if we were to have 3 EX ults, we would have done 5.7 with Jaune, and probably 5 million with Violet, and 4.5 with Blanc, it still would not be enough damage. Alright, that's all I got. If you have found a different stacking team that can actually get the job done for Inferno 1, that even does or does not require the full meta, please, for the love of God, put it in the comments. Or you could try that stun team from that JP player, or a variation of a stun team as well. But that's all I got for you, so good luck. I'm sorry in advance, but that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.